everyone, and welcome to the Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and LA River Committee. We will get things going. Our colleague Curran Price is on his way, but in the meantime, we can go ahead and begin public comment. And we're going to have public comment on the following items. We will hear public comments on 1, 2, 5, 6, and general. And the comments will be for 60 seconds. And we're going to begin with item 1 with Herman, followed by Wayne. On item 1, you're up.
Item 1 is a city administrative officer report relative to a proposed amendment to an agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Unified School District for the joint use of portions of the Baldwin Hills Recreation Center and the Baldwin Hills Elementary School to extend the term from 10 to 20 years and to reduce the joint use area, which consists of an asphalt playground and parking lot, from approximately 1.82 to 1.30 acres to allow for the construction of a universally accessible baseball field at the center.
Thank you, Ms. Galvin. And Herman, you're up first. 60 seconds.
Woo! All you kids.
Make the most of your time.
All you kids, we're going to make the best of our time regarding the use of the portions of the Baldwin Hills Recreation in joint interest of the LA Unified School District for asphalt play area, which is not in compliance to the American Disability Act. What does the American Disability Act say about asphalt? No one cares. See, children, they don't want to listen. I keep telling them that kids slip and fall that are partially blind, discriminate against all the children, like Mr. Duarte, who does not like children, like myself, who fully engage and participate in meetings with the ability to say, you're in violation of the American Disability Act on this motion. I'm against item number 1 in CD 10. You racist action of accessible baseball field should be for everyone. Thank you.
And Wayne?
Yes, we have a 20-year term when there has not been construction yet of this so-called universally accessible baseball field, and you're reducing it down to looks like a half an acre. So why so much time? Why not have a shorter term, 20 years? And I think that we have a fiscal impact statement, but we don't know how much this is going to cost. Oh, okay. And now we're giving public comment with a proper quorum. So that's nice. So I would say no to this. The term is too long, and it's unknown what the liability issues are going to be if somebody gets injured and this baseball field is deemed not to be accessible.
Thank you for your comment. And welcome, Mr. Price. We are joined by Curran Price. And Ms. Galvin will hear item 2 comments.
Item 2 is a city administrative officer report relative to a request from the Department of Aging for authority to execute amendments for senior and family caregiver services contracts that provide programs and services to seniors and their families, including home-delivered meals, congregate nutrition, assistive transportation, care management, ombudsman protection for nursing home residents, and legal services.
Thank you. And we will hear from H, and then we'll hear from Wayne.
Well, thank you for saving my time, Mr. O'Farrell. You don't have to waste my time with my full name. But you all know that these programs for services for seniors is by far the most important thing in the quality of life for everyone, including home delivery meals. Oh, what else? Nutritional assistive transportation care, management, protection for nursing home abuse by residents. Hey, it even includes abuse by the City of Los Angeles to neglect the elderly and the disabled. All you children, don't worry. Batman is coming tomorrow to save the world. I love Batman. He saves people. He talks about the injustice of those politicians that cry because they don't want to help seniors. They claim they do, but they'd really do nothing. Because if we had a quorum earlier, we would all be satisfied. Thank you, Mr. Price, for showing up late again. Bye.
We'll now hear from Wayne.
Yeah.
Well, they have to have services for the seniors and the people are old, and they have to have meals delivered to their houses, even though the sidewalks are too broken to walk on and can't have a wheelchair on the sidewalk. So we have to have an ombudsman protecting the nursing home residents, because in the nursing homes, they take all your stuff and steal it, and then they sell it back to you for cigarettes, which is on item number 4. So they kind of relate to 2 and 4. And then they give you free food. Well, they give you the usual. Free food to these bastards here means you're going to not get nice food. You're going to get them old leftovers from all those restaurants where the mayor goes and eats, and he gives you those leftovers, you know. And then the restaurants, they use it as a write-off on their taxes. So this is a nice way for you City Hall folks to take us elderly and abuse us. So vote no on this item.
And Ms. Galvin will now hear comments on item 3.
Item 3 is a City Administrative Officer report relative to a request from the Department of Aging for approval to execute amendments to standard agreements HI 141525 and FA 131625 with the California Department of Aging, and proposed amendments to contract number 119231 with the Center for Healthcare Rights.
Thank you. And we have one speaker, and I believe it says Herman.
Pass.
And he is passing. And we'll go to item 5 for public comment.
Item 5 is a Department of Cultural Affairs report relative to a request for retroactive approval to apply for and accept a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts for the Big Read Initiative for fiscal year 2015-16.
Thank you. We have one unsigned comment card and then one that is signed Tom Cat. So let's start with Tom Cat, and if the unsigned person would like to finish out the card, then we can accommodate him or her.
Yes, going on this one as the Tomcat. Wow! Because you see, like a cat, you got to be quick with the money around here in City Hall. Wow! So retroactive approval. So, like as quick as a cat getting that rat, you're out there getting the money retroactively. So what you do is you spend the money, then you go in the parking lot and you make your backyard deal. And then you're going to go back and you're going to get the money reimbursed from the money you already spent because you knew that you were going to get it on the back end. Wow! So, like all the other cats out there that purr in the night, City Hall's out there making their deals. Like Mr. Buscaino, they're not paying attention. Wow!
Getting off the subject when you mentioned a council member by name.
Wow! Wow!
And we have an unsigned card for item 5, so that noted for the record. Ms. Galvin, we'll move to item 6 for public comment.
Item 6 is the Department of Recreation and Parks report relative to a request for retroactive approval to apply for and accept the National Recreation and Park Association Coca-Cola Foundation Refreshing Community Spaces Program Grant Award for the Lou Costello Ballfields Project.
Thank you. And we have 2 comment cards, one from Tomcat and one from Herman.
Well, you children, as you see in CD 14, regarding Department of Recs and Parks, Coca-Cola Foundation's Refreshing Community Space wants to award the Lou Costello Ballfield Project. Although Jose Weezer don't give a rat's ass about us children in our council district because all the conditions around our parks, like Hazard Park, well, it's not Lou Costello Park, but Hazard Park does have potential. I really mean potential. Anyways, regarding Lou Costello and CD 14, I find that Jose Weezer is an offensive, callous man.
Yeah, you're off the subject.
I'm talking about CD 14, Mr. What's your name again? Mitchie. Don't don't be bitchy, Mitchy. Let me finish. Let me finish talking about Park and Association by Coca-Cola. I'm against the space. Coca-Cola should give honors to people who deserve it and not Jose Huizar, who falsely accuses people of not having a good marriage.
Off the subject once again. And Tom, you're next.
Wow! Like the tomcat, you got to be quick with the money. Retroactive. And now we've got Coca-Cola. And today's City Hall meeting is brought to you by Coca-Cola. And now, Lou Costello Ballpark. Who's on first? I don't know. Who's on second? Well, we're going to get retroactive money from who? Who's on third? I don't know. Who's on outfield? I don't know. Who's on shortstop? Who's on first? Well, it's all the same people. It's all the same people. Retroactive approval? Jesus. Retroactive approval. Spend the money and then get the money back on the back end, this time from a corporate donor. What's Coca-Cola getting out of this? They're getting a refreshing community space. Drink Coca-Cola.
And just a note for the record, there have been numerous interruptions by Herman throughout this committee hearing so far. We're going to take public comment now, starting with Wayne and then followed by Herman. This is general public comment.
Yes. Always starting meetings without a quorum. Sitting there, checking his email there. You get paid a lot of money to do that. Never a quorum. You get barely five, you get what, 5 members of this? Where's Tom LeBongi? And where's Gilbert the Cat Cedillo? Or see, we don't know where they are. It's just it's a joke. Everything's pro forma. Everything is pre-approved. Everything is unanimous. That's the problem with the city. That's why the city cannot go forward. That's why it retrogresses. That's why it has to go and get retroactive money, because it's in the past. You're operating on a paradigm of corruption that has proven not to work since when the Roman Empire fell. You're not representing the people. You're just caretakers for a corrupt syndicate. Is this what you wanted to do with your lives when you grew up? When you were a little kid, you wanted to grow up to be like this? Not me.
Okay, Herman, public comment.
Can't take the criticism, huh? So when criticism is well-deserved, I don't find it abridging, no disagreement towards the public. You damn well know why I speak forcefully against the actions of abuse, waste. You created it. You created a city of stupidity based on your simple mind, nothing in it. Homelessness is a problem you don't address, all of you. And I can look you right in the face. And when we talk about AIDS, regarding people with AIDS, you do nothing as well for them. I hell well know what I'm talking about. So stop wasting the taxpayers' dollars, all the hardworking people called Angelinos that you so politely want to talk about and praise yourself over bullshit presentations. Yeah. See, I can look you straight in the face and say it, not like Joe Buscaino with his head down looking at his stupid phone. Don't care about the public. That's why I'm so straightforward about my comment today on public comment. Morons.
Thank you. That concludes public comment, and you've just witnessed the First Amendment in action. All right, colleagues, at this time, I would like to take items 2, 3, 5, and 6 on consent without objection. I'd also like to receive and file item 1, since I understand that item does not need council approval. And furthermore, item 2, senior and family caregiver service contracts will be scheduled in council tomorrow. They're time sensitive before the end of the fiscal year, as well as item 3, Department of Aging standard agreements. Item 5, Department of Cultural Affairs in relation to applying for the National Endowment for the Arts for the Big Read initiatives also. And then item 6, which is National Rec and Park Association, Coca-Cola Foundation Refreshing Community Spaces Program Grant Award. Without objection, we will move on consent 2, 3, 5, and 6, and receive and file, item 1. Seeing as there are no objections, we're good. All right, thank you, gentlemen. That brings us to item 4.
Item 4 is a city attorney report relative to proposed recommendations to enhance compliance with the tobacco retail permit ordinance and the status on the city attorney's tobacco enforcement program.
Thank you. Colleagues, it is crucial that the city continue to promote the enforcement of existing laws which prohibit the sales of tobacco products to minors and protect children from being lured into the illegal activity through the misconduct of some adults who have the privilege of selling tobacco. I worked on policy along with our colleagues Paul Koretz and Mr. Parks to regulate sales and use of electronic cigarettes and to include e-cigarettes under the definition of tobacco products. According to the Office of Finance, there are currently 4,768 tobacco retailers within the city. However, in Los Angeles, minors have an out of regulation ability to access tobacco products in the city of Los Angeles to the tune of 24%. The rest of the state, those types of violations affect 7.6% of sales. So we have some issue in terms of enforcement for tobacco products for our youth. On February 18th, the City Council approved the motion from Nuri Martinez, myself, Bernard Parks, seconded by Paul Koretz, requesting the city attorney to provide a status report on the tobacco retailers permit ordinance and tobacco enforcement program, including number of violations, compliance checks, extent, and the strategies to reduce youth access to tobacco products. We have Selena Porras, I believe, with us. Yes, thank you. David Michelson and also Nora Manzanilla from City Attorney's Office here today to go over the report, and they will provide an overview of the report and go over each of the recommendations. Welcome, all of you. Thank you so much for your work on this report, and we look forward to hearing about it. Thank you. So begin, whomever is ready.
Okay. Well, I'll begin with a brief history. Thank you again, Councilmember O'Farrell and council members for asking us to come forward. The city's tobacco retail permit ordinance was adopted in May of 2000. The city of Los Angeles was the first city to actually adopt a tobacco retail permit ordinance in the state of California. And to date, there are probably 109 cities and counties that currently have a tobacco retailer's permit or licensing program. In 2008, the City Council unanimously approved a $300 fee, an annual fee for tobacco retailers. The Office of Finance is responsible for the issuance and the processing of these tobacco permits. The program is responsible for ensuring that all retailers in the City of Los Angeles obtain a valid tobacco permit prior to the sale of tobacco products. Our goal is not only the enforcement portion of it, but a public health goal too. What we're trying to do is decrease the sale of tobacco products to minors, thereby decreasing uptake and youth uptake of tobacco products. We do this by requiring that all tobacco retailers obtain their permit, by conducting regular minor decoy operations, compliance checks in retail outlets throughout the city. We contract with the California Department of Public Health Food and Drug Branch. They are responsible for the minor decoy stings. So LAPD does not conduct minor decoy stings throughout the city.
Who's the enforcement arm of that?
It's the Department of Public Health Food and Drug Branch. They actually have been doing it since 1998 for the state of California. That's how we get the statewide averages. But they have a history of doing that, and they're also conducting compliance checks for the FDA as well.
Very different than the alcohol piece, right?
Yes.
I remember doing decoys.
ABC, because you can use 18-year-olds, and in the city, the policy with LAPD has not, we've been told, I've never seen a written policy, but that the use of using 15 and 16-year-olds was problematic. Mm-hmm. But they use the 18-year-olds for ABC, and for this particular operation, you do have to use a 15 and 16-year-old decoy with a valid California permit. So they actually go into the store with 2 investigators, and everybody has a camera, so including the minor. And that information and what we call our Stop Tobacco Access to Kids enforcement, it's pursuant to a Business and Professions Code, is reported to us, which then triggers the tobacco retailer's permit to begin our administrative process. So for a first violation within a 5-year period of a sale of tobacco products to a minor, the city issues a letter of reprimand to retailers. For a second violation, we suspend a retailer for 30 days. For a third violation...
That second violation can occur within a year, 2 years, 3
Correct.
years?
It's all within a 5-year period, so that's the way it works. So within a first, we send the letter of reprimand. If the second year, within the second or third year, they sell again to a minor, that would be their second violation, we suspend their permit for 30 days. For a third violation within that 5-year period, we suspend for 90 days. And for a fourth violation, we suspend for a year, for a 12-month. We rarely see the 12-month violations. I mean, we do have more 30-day and 90-day suspensions.
Is there a dollar amount associated with the
No.
ban?
There is no dollar amount associated or penalty. The penalty that is associated with it, and I don't want to confuse things, is a civil penalty that is issued by the California Department of Public Health because they are the agency pursuant to a Business and Professions Code. So they issue the penalty, which then triggers the city's tobacco retail permit ordinance to begin its administrative process. Selling also tobacco in the city without a valid permit is a misdemeanor. Selling them in a way that is accessible to the public, to minors, is also a misdemeanor. Since the city adopted the tobacco retailer's permit ordinance, approximately, again, 109 cities and counties have adopted strong retail licenses.
So if they have multiple violations as far as a renewal permit, is that taken into effect when it's time to renew?
No.
They
No.
don't take that in consideration when it's time to renew the amount of violations within that 5-year period?
Yes, it is not taken into effect.
But will you be addressing that in your recommendations?
Yes.
One of the recommendations directly addresses it.
Yes.
LA's
Right.
been a bit of an outlier on this issue compared to other municipalities.
Right. So with the support of the council members and Councilmember O'Farrell since 2013, we also, the city attorney has prioritized that ensuring the tobacco regulations do not become outdated or fall behind the times, which we are with our other jurisdictions in California. For example, last year the City Council amended our ordinance to require, with your leadership, Councilmember O'Farrell, that e-cigarette retailers obtain a tobacco permit. So now it's included, e-cigarettes are part of the definition of tobacco products. And we also prohibited the e-cigarette use in smoke-free regulations. Today, our city's tobacco permit ordinance, including the penalties for retailers that sell cigarettes to minors, is 15 years old. There is a need to modernize, so we are on par with other jurisdictions in our country and our state. These jurisdictions have surpassed us in their enforcement efforts against retailers that sell cigarettes to minors. Our work also does not stop at our office by regulating tobacco retailers, but through a community prevention model and the vision of the city attorney, we strive through funding and collaboration to educate retailers, students, teachers, and parents. Through our partnership with LA Unified, we have some small grants with them. We have worked to forge collaborations through educational outreach at the middle, high schools, and the parent centers. And that is such an important piece and part of the program because during the time when we were passing the e-cigarettes, we had many calls from parents about what these products were. We had parents contacting us, telling us they would purchase those products because they thought it was a safer product, better for kids. We had so many people calling us about retailers. So that part is vital to the program, and it goes hand in hand with the enforcement and the work that we do. Recently, we also launched the Responsible Retailer Initiative, which was a grant funded through our partner, the LA County Department of Public Health Tobacco Control Program, through the funding through the from the Centers for Disease Control. The initiative really explores ways in which retail stores near schools can become a powerful force in building safe and healthy communities. One of the reasons why we look at retailers and schools is because in 2003 we conducted a study that showed the illegal sales rate is much higher the closer you get to a school. So we want to thank Councilmember O'Farrell and Council Members Buscaino and Price for always being supportive of our program, being proactive in our fight to keep tobacco away from kids, and for protecting the city's residents from the dangers of secondhand smoke. We also welcome this opportunity to provide the recommendations to update our tobacco regulations so that our city, Los Angeles, does not fall behind our neighbors in our tobacco enforcement efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Selena Porras, and I'm a Deputy City Attorney, and I advise the tobacco program. I'm happy to discuss the recommendations that are in the status report one by one, or I can answer
Sure.
questions.
If you could just go,
Give a
maybe
brief
give us the Cliff Note versions of,
Sure.
of them, that would be
Sure.
terrific.
Sure. As Nora stated, the current penalties are a letter of reprimand followed by a 30-day suspension, then a 90 and a 1-year suspension for retailers that sell to kids. We want to completely remove that letter of reprimand and instead initiate a 30-day suspension immediately upon a retailer's first sale to a kid. This would be consistent with all the other cities in the county. In fact, we've looked at ordinances statewide and looked actually countywide at what some of the best practices are, and we feel very strongly that eliminating that letter of reprimand would be important. We also would like to initiate a revocation penalty. So the new scheme would be initially a 30-day suspension, followed by a 90, followed by a 120. Then thereafter, the permit would be revoked. And I think this speaks to what Councilmember Buscaino discussed about a retailer being allowed to renew if they had multiple violations. Well, if we were to do this revocation scheme, they would not be. If their permit were revoked, they would not be allowed to renew. So that would be our second recommendation. Our third recommendation would be for retailers to remove tobacco-related advertising during their suspension. We believe that allowing a store to advertise a product they cannot legally sell would be misleading to consumers, and it can invite illegal sales. We have looked at research on this issue that has shown that tobacco companies spend billions of dollars on tobacco advertising, much of it targeted to entice youth. The placement of tobacco advertisement is also critical, much of it placed at children's eye level, a little lower to the ground. Although we can't obviously remove all tobacco advertising, we can at minimum remove it from locations in which permits are suspended because it's been documented and proven that they sell to kids. So that would be our third recommendation. Our fourth recommendation would be to require all retailers to visibly post a notice of suspension. The notice would basically put consumers, patrons, law enforcement on notice that this particular location is suspended, much like an ABC notice is put out when a location can't sell alcohol. And in fact, all of the city tobacco retailers should have a state tobacco license as well, and the state imposes that same obligation on them, so this is not new. The fifth recommendation would be to make violations of Labor Code 6404.5 make those violations a violation of our permit as well. That Labor Code prohibits smoking in smoke-free locations. There are some bars, karaoke bars, even restaurants that sell tobacco and then allow that tobacco to be smoked tableside with their meals, including where children are eating. We're not adding a new obligation or a new restriction. This type of behavior, allowing smoking in indoor workplaces, is already a violation of the Labor Code. What we're doing is merely giving the city another tool in our toolbox to further regulate these locations and tell them if you're going to sell tobacco, you must do it responsibly, and you can't allow people to smoke in violation of the Labor Code, putting our city residents, visitors, and children at risk for secondhand smoke. And those are our 5 recommendations.
Thank you. Dave, would you like to add anything?
I'll just briefly add, because my colleagues are very, very good at what they do. This is a very important program for the city attorney. He views its success as critical for the city, and he hopes that if you have any questions, you raise those questions to us here today or other times. we would be very pleased to return a draft ordinance to the council that puts these recommendations in place and presents them to your committee and to full council for enactment, so we can get the modernization that Nora and Selena mentioned actually accomplished and on the books.
Thank you. Thank you so much. To me, the statistics speak loud and clear. We have an out-of-proportion non-compliance issue for tobacco sales to minors in Los Angeles, and that is, we're a big city of 4 million people, so imagine the tens of thousands of youth that are getting cigarette and tobacco products that shouldn't be, and extrapolate that into the future in terms of addiction. That's a real problem. I would say it requires urgent action by us, which is why I'm so keen on moving this forward. When you compare that to a 7.6 non-compliance rate for the state, that tells me that we need to catch up and get with the program. I have a question on item 2, and that is, so according to the report, state law, there's a requirement that requires retailers to post a notice of suspension when their state-issued cigarette and tobacco products license is suspended. Are we currently not even doing that?
No, we are not.
Okay, so that really stands out as we better mitigate that because we're out of compliance with state law.
Well, it's not a requirement of state
Okay,
law.
what's
It
the
would be-
recommendation?
Well, the state has their own suspension administrative process.
Okay.
So it's when a state license is suspended, they must post a notice.
All right.
So it's a separate license, it's a separate suspension, but it's still a license to sell tobacco.
A consistency issue.
Correct.
Which other municipalities are rectifying,
Correct.
apparently. Okay, terrific. So you answered the one question. So our current regulations have been in place since 2000 when that initial, I think, ordinance related to restaurants. Well, I might be wrong about that, but they've been in place for 15 years.
Correct.
Okay. Because I think the initial ordinance for restaurants was in 93, if I'm not mistaken.
93.
94, something, okay. Question, if any of the 5 of recommendations are adopted, you mentioned, drafting that ordinance and getting it to council. What's the time frame for that?
Once full city council gives the green light and makes the request to our office, we will turn that document around relatively quickly. Probably, I don't want to speak too quickly here.
We'll get started on
Selena?
it right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once full council acts, within just a few weeks, we'll bring it back.
Oh, terrific. All
Yes.
right. So
Probably just right after recess.
So when we come
You have
back,
it
we
right
could
back.
be looking
Oh,
at
definitely.
adopting something terrific.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Explain the rationale for prohibiting tobacco retailer advertising during suspension periods, and gets us into territory that I'm not certain about that I'd like to hear a little more.
Okay, well, one thing is that when we looked at best practices throughout the state and throughout the county, that was recommended as one, and we looked at all the other strong ordinances in LA County, all the other big cities, including Long Beach, Pasadena, Glendale, Burbank, Santa Monica. They all contained this provision. The theory is that there is documented research that shows tobacco companies do target to children. We can't prohibit tobacco advertising entirely, but if we do have a location in which it is documented that they are illegally selling to kids to the point that their privilege to sell tobacco is being suspended or revoked, at minimum, we should remove the advertising for those locations.
Okay.
And I think that's an important word that Selena used, privileged. You're selling tobacco in the city of Los Angeles. It's by virtue of a permit. It essentially gives you that privilege to sell. You need to make sure as a retailer that you're doing it responsibly. If you're not, there are ramifications.
Okay. And what would this signify in relation to places like hookah lounges and entities that require some form of membership, special event, banquet halls, etc., cigar lounges, things like that? Can you address?
Sure. Is there a specific recommendation you're referring to, or just the report in general?
Just in general. Yeah.
Okay, well, if any of the locations that you mentioned had an indoor area and there were employees there, they need to abide by the labor code. So we would want to make sure that they are not unlawfully allowing indoor smoking. If they were, they would be violating the labor code. And what we would propose is making that violation not only, like I said, a criminal violation of the labor code, but also a hit against their tobacco permit, that we would revoke their tobacco permit, or suspend it, I should say, if they violate the labor code. There's also, I think, Councilmember, did you mention private events?
You're right.
Okay,
Private
I thought
events that
I
require a
read that.
membership or that are,
Oh, right.
contracted out for a banquet or something.
Okay. There is a
Private
reference
use.
in the report to private events, and that's in regards to the smoke-free outdoor dining ordinance. That ordinance was passed in 2010, and we've looked at the legislative history behind that private events exemption. The law currently states that in the city of LA, you cannot smoke in an outdoor dining area, but it exempts quote-unquote private events. The problem that we have seen is that there are some businesses, it's a minority because most businesses, I have to say, are complying with the law. The city of LA has residents and visitors have kind of supported our smoke-free efforts. They want smoke-free dining. However, there is a minority that are evading these smoking prohibitions by saying, I'm a private club. When LAPD or LA Fire Department goes in to enforce the no smoking in that patio, they say, oh, well, we're private, everyone's here as a member. So we want to prevent businesses from doing that. We've looked at all of the other ordinances that prohibit smoking in outdoor dining areas. None of them make an exemption for a private event. Just like we're trying to protect kids from purchasing cigarettes, we also want to protect them from secondhand smoke. We don't want children dining where someone is smoking. So that would be the reason to modify that private event exemption. We want all businesses to thrive. We want all of them to be on equal playing field. And I think the only way to do that is to make sure that this law is enforced consistently and not letting certain recalcitrant businesses continue to evade the outdoor smoking law or outdoor dining provisions. So that was our rationale for addressing that private event exemption.
Okay.
There's also a bar exemption to the smoke-free outdoor dining ordinance. We feel that that needs to be updated. The way it's read now, it can virtually apply to any location that has an ABC license. We obviously want to make sure that if a family is out dining at a restaurant, just because that restaurant sells alcohol, that the children eating outside in the outdoor patio would not be exposed to secondhand smoke. We did look at the council file, which was 090215 for that ordinance. We looked at what the legislative history was, and we did see that it was intended to be age restrictive. It really was meant to apply to true bars with a certain type of ABC license. So we want to make sure that we're able to remedy that and make sure that council's originally intent is reflected in the ordinance.
Okay.
These are really designed to put into place things that our office has learned in the field over the last few years, and sort of lessons learned that we want to bring to you to allow us to make those changes legislatively.
Right. And a lot of complaints, I have to say, I do field most of the constituent complaints asking, or from a business owner saying, hey, there's no smoking in my outdoor patio. Why is a restaurant down the street allowing smoking in theirs? And we send our enforcement, and they say, oh, because they say it's a private event. And we're kind of stuck in that regard.
And so all they have to do is say it's a private event and there's no requirement for documentation or nothing, not even like a reservation note, nothing. They just say it's a private event and they're off the hook.
That's what we've found.
Interesting.
And that's what we want to try to address and tighten that up a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll have a few more things to say, but colleagues, yeah, Mr. Price.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. This is an important issue. I think smoking is a public health concern for everyone, especially for kids. So I really appreciate the focus on tightening up our rules and regs. I had a question about your program highlights and key accomplishments and the mass mailing.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious here. You say that you did a mailing targeting potential retailers who failed. So how are you defining the potential as opposed to maybe retailers who didn't do something? Or?
So what we usually do on an annual basis, and we view this as a cost-effective way to try to find the retailers. So we do receive from the Office of Finance a list of retailers that have not renewed their permit. So that's who we mean. And so what we do
They had a permit,
annually...
but didn't renew it.
They never
some reason.
renewed it. And they usually have 2 chances before it comes to us. And so what we do is we send a notice to comply, and we let them know they have 3 days to get their permit and to obtain it, go to the Office of Finance and get it. So we usually get a really good, turnaround just by doing a mailing. So we view that as a low cost effective way. And then our investigators, if we don't, and we haven't received any correspondence from the retailer, our investigators conduct on-site inspections, and they give them a notice of what we call a notice of violation. We have a 95% compliance rate with that because it's a face-to-face. They let them know, and they're in here now with us, Edith and Rick, big part of our program, but they let them know that they have, they need to close their store, and 90% of the time I'm getting a phone call from the retailer saying, I just closed my store, I'm on my way to the Office of Finance. So they leave there, and they leave them, and they leave the notice, and so we also see that as another good way. But we have 2 investigators. We have 4,000 retailers, so we're spread thin, and they're very busy.
So this is
but
only a one-time mailing, or is it something you do every month, every 3 months? I mean, it sounds like it's a good way to...
Okay, yeah. It's kind of a long, ongoing joke in the office because we do a notice to comply, and we're like, okay, now we're going to do a second notice to comply and really get them. But it's a low cost effective way for us to try to gain some compliance and with the permit revenue as well. So
And statistically, it shows that it's worked, actually,
Yeah.
well.
No, I agree. I'm saying how often, why don't we do it more often?
we actually do. So we'll do a
twice a
second
year,
notice.
3 times a
We
year?
do it like 3 times a year. Sometimes 3 and sometimes even 4.
I'd encourage even more if it works like that.
Yes.
If there are more fish in the sea, you can get out there and fish.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for your leadership on this issue, and thanks for shedding light on, clearly the city this is an embarrassing state. The fact that compared to other cities up and down the state of California, we have weakened these administrative penalties, and if you go back to how this ordinance was crafted, it's because back in 2000 it allowed the 30-day suspension. Actually, it was a warning, right?
A warning letter, a letter of
It's
reprimand.
exactly, and that's what it is today. They just allowed a warning. So this kind of obviously strengthens these penalties. Just want to applaud the city attorney and his office for putting forth an ordinance that has teeth to it, and in response to this motion. I also like the fact that on the third recommendation, prohibit tobacco advertising from being displayed during suspension periods. I remember we had illegal alcohol sales to minors when I was a senior lead officer, and that's when we brought in decoys to address the issue. But everywhere you go to a liquor store, the advertising is just blanket all over the liquor stores. So in and out, right? So I'm happy to see that. I'd like to see that move forward as well. So good work. Thanks so much for your leadership on this, Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Question, in terms of stepping up the compliance, the enforcement, the fees, et cetera, is that enough to help fund inspectors, or is it really just for, just to send the signal? Because I imagine, and I'm not suggesting right now we increase the fees, but is there a monetary, I don't know,
I think when we
incentive for
were
us?
contemplating these recommendations, we felt that we can accomplish all of them with our current permit fee.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will be able to do that.
It's not like it's going to be able to fund extra inspectors necessarily. I wouldn't think that, but I just wanted to make sure with you. That's not the intent, or
No, and I think that a bulk of the fee from the tobacco permits goes to enforcement, these minor decoy stings. So currently we were doing like 445. We're now doing 700 compliance checks that the Department of Public Health, through a contractual services agreement. I think that in the history of the tobacco enforcement program, there is always discussion, and I think it's an ongoing fluid discussion about the importance of conducting more and more compliance checks. And should there be, any kind of overages or whatever, that we would like to see that money be used for increased compliance checks. There was a number of 700 in one year that we should go to 900, then to 1,200. We have close to nearly 5,000 retailers. And the way we conduct our inspections is based on our hotspots from the year before. And so, but we try to do the same amount in each of our council districts, but we struggle because, we're talking about 60 to 70 compliance checks in a district that has 300 to 900 stores, 350 possibly in Council District 9, many as well, 300 and plus in Council District 13.
Sure.
So that is always our struggle, and that's why we also have to do the other projects, which are to outreach to schools, to educate schools, parents, and this retailer initiative. We have to do something that's on the ground level to support retail education for retailers and talk about compliance.
Terrific.
Can I just add, as much as it's important to regulate this issue, and to increase and strengthen these administrative penalties, it's also equally important on the public education part as well. So I like the partnership with the school district. I mean, my kids see somebody smoking, it's like, ooh, he's smoking, Dad. He's like committing a felony. And it's like, yes, it's important that it starts at home, too, on the education piece.
Yes.
It's a balance. And if we can get all the information out to our local schools at a young age to educate the kids and also the parents, and it's equally important to move forward on that piece. And then lastly, if I can, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
Your fifth recommendation on strengthening provisions that ban smoking in outdoor dining areas. So it's my understanding, say if I have a restaurant with an outdoor patio, obviously you can't smoke inside the restaurant, and also you can't smoke outside in the patio as well, right?
So long as there's dining occurring.
Okay.
So if you just, for example, have a bar.
Right.
And you have an outdoor area, you can always smoke outdoors.
Unless it's a private event. So if somebody rents out the restaurant for a birthday party.
Under the current ordinance, yes, that would be a private event and you'd be exempted.
And it could be a kid's birthday party, and you can imagine that presents a bit of a problem. That's why we were recommending we need to tighten up these rules so businesses know what the rules of the road are, so it's fair competition among businesses, and maybe most importantly, making sure that children are not exposed to secondhand smoke in these patios in these restaurants. And so we're not saying that the majority of restaurants in the city are engaged in this activity, but enough are doing it that it really does require attention.
I'd like to hear. I don't know, Mr. I'd like to hear more moving forward on that. I mean, a private event is a private event. It's up to the parents to decide whether or not you expose your child to cigarettes and to secondhand smoking. But I also have a popular cigar lounge in San Pedro, like on 9th Street, and it's a lounge. They're smoking inside. How does this impact? I mean,
Well, it wouldn't if it was a cigar lounge because they wouldn't necessarily be dining outside.
Got it.
So it's really, this is only implicated at a food service
for
facility.
food service facility, got it. But also, you mentioned in your fourth recommendation, the labor code, that you require tobacco retailers to comply with the labor code.
Right. And a cigar lounge actually is
Is
not
exempt.
bound by,
Is
correct,
exempt,
it's
right?
exempt from the
Okay,
labor code.
got it. Thank you.
And Councilmember, I just want to echo what you said a minute ago about the importance for outreach. And this particular program in the City Attorney's Office, the staff involved, some of them are here today, have done really an incredible job, both getting grant funding, partnerships with other governmental entities and with other private organizations, really in the school district, to really get the word out. And it's been a big part of this program now for a number of years, and it's a critical part of the program, in addition to enforcement and dealing with the retailers. So it's been a very successful program. We're here today is to hopefully gain support to make some legislative changes, modernize a little bit, and also maybe focus on enforcement aspects that need some more attention.
Terrific.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And we do have comment cards on this item. Thank you so much. Great work.
Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
Really terrific. We have Herman followed by Wayne. Herman going once. Herman going twice. Herman had his chance. Wayne. Going once. Wayne going twice. Wayne had his chance. Let's see. And now we have Stephen Gallegos, followed by Robert Dowen. I'm sorry, my apologies.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Stephen Gallegos. I am with Public Health Policy Advocate, and I've been involved in the tobacco control movement since 1996. So I've worked very hard to help try and pass these policies, and we've been very successful. The recommendations made by the City Attorney's Office for tobacco retail licensing and other tobacco ordinances for strengthening them, completely support. One thing I'd like to speak on specifically, I was the enforcement officer for the City of Pasadena's tobacco control program, the city's public health department, and worked to enforce the smoking laws in the City of Pasadena. The one thing that we just really need to do is just to make sure that we can eliminate these private smoking clubs, because the thing is, when you're talking about a morph, you've got these places licensed as a restaurants, licensed as a bar, but they're not licensed as a club, and just through their own invention say, well, we're going to start a club, we're going to start a membership. Well, where's the government interest in making sure that somebody can just do that or not do that? And I think that's kind of a ruse, and it really does hurt the people, especially those who are working in these areas who don't have the opportunity to say, I'm not going to work this smoking, because they've got to earn a paycheck.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Thank you so much. All right, seeing as we have Herman, thank you. Herman is next, followed by, I think the moniker is Tomcat at this point. Maybe it's Wayne. But anyway, the two of you, and then, sir, I'll get with you.
Wow. This is item number 4. To all you little kitties, meow, tobacco retail permits ordinance is kind of like saying it's okay to do drugs. But me and Miss Reagan said, no, stop, don't do drugs. Tobaccos and alcohol are drugs. And so are the drugs influenced by, what? City Attorney Tobacco Enforcement. Oh, they're the good guys. They're the ones that regulate all you people from doing the bad things to us children, putting smoke shops by the YMCA in Boyle Heights, putting the smoke shops on the streets on every corner so that when I go by, I have to inhale the COPD that damages my lungs because I have asthma, but no one gives a rat. Children, sorry to use such bad language, but wow, us cats have to eat the big fat rats like Joe Busciano, who like to say bad things about us kids because he says he's doing enforcement programs.
All right.
Wow. Yep. Like the Tomcat. Now the city attorney, relative to a proposed recommendation to enhance compliance with the tobacco retail permit ordinance and status on the city authority's tobacco enforcement program.
Oh, it looks like a lawsuit coming. We were just in Budget and Finance. $18.5 million in outside city attorney's fees already for the city having to defend itself. Because whenever you do something like this, tobacco is a legal product. And, you know, the cops are going to come around and the city's going to come around. And what do they want? Inspectors always eventually want payoffs. That's why these people that run these shops are absolutely terrified. Because on the one hand, you want to sell the product and earn the taxes, and on the other hand, you want to make it impossible to sell the product.
All right, sir. Is it Dowen? Donen. It's Donen, my apologies. Followed by Violet Ruiz.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Busciano, Councilmember Price, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Donen. I'm a Santa Monica resident and a longtime volunteer and grassroots advocate with the American Heart Association. It's a point of personal and professional privilege to be here today to testify on this item. and I'm here to support item 4, file number 13-1204-S3. I applaud and commend the City Attorney and Director of the Tobacco Enforcement Program for their insight and work on this important public policy matter. I request that the report and recommendations be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Violet Ruiz, followed by Primo Castro.
Good afternoon. My name is Violet Ruiz. I'm the Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association, and just here to commend the work from the City Attorney's Office, and we are in full support of really strengthening the TRL ordinance, and we were also in support in 2000 when it was originally presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Chair O'Farrell, thank you very much for your leadership once again. Primo Castro, Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, the advocacy affiliate of the American Cancer Society, here in support of the City Attorney's proposal amendments. And please, by all means, I encourage everybody here on this committee to actually support and move forward with these amendments. We really need this. I really can't tell you and focus how important it is, that we protect our children here in the city of LA. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Castro. Colleagues, as much as I abhor tobacco and the use of tobacco, I also, at the same time, want to make sure that we don't ensnare some of our businesses that do these private events. And I want to do some more deep digging on the repercussions for that piece of it. That's the item 5, or the 5th provision out of the 5. I haven't consulted yet with that constituency in my own district. So I want to do a little bit more thinking about that, and a little bit more, I want to hear a little more about that. So what I would like to recommend, colleagues, is that we adopt items 1 through 4. To me, what started off on me on this is just the whole sales and marketing to youth, to minors. And I think that by adopting 1 through 4, we just address that head on, and we really are more in parity with what other municipalities are doing, and with the consistency that the state suggests. So what I would like to do is, on Section 5 of the enforcement piece, for the CA to report on statistics, the types of violations, the real numbers on that piece, and specify, well, you talked a little bit about it, but maybe with greater specificity on the numbers of the businesses impacted, because especially as it relates to children that are exposed to tobacco use at these private functions, matters a whole lot. But I think we owe to ourselves to get some real firm data on that before we adopt that piece of it. Sure, please.
I have made note of your request, so thank you. We will,
thank you.
Look into that. But I did have a question, because that recommendation 5 did include not only the private event exemption, but also the bar exemption.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can split it to 5A and 5B.
Okay.
And what would be the council?
I think that might make more sense then.
Okay.
Thanks for that recommendation. Do you agree, colleagues?
Yes.
I think if we bifurcate and go 5A, so that we also are adopting, bars and restaurants, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And that would be the tightening of that bar definition
Mm-hmm.
to limit to ABC license, certain ABC type licenses that
Yeah.
don't implicate all restaurants.
And get a report back on 5B, which is on the private
Right.
private
Great.
events.
That makes
you.
great sense. Thanks for that suggestion.
Move approval, or move the recommendation.
Right. All right, without objections, we will move forward with the adoption of the report to draft an ordinance to accommodate 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5A as amended. Did I say all that right for the record? All right. Without objection, it carries. Thank you. Thanks again, City Attorney's Office. Masterful job on this. Thank you. And that brings us to item 7.
Item 7 is a Department of Aging report relative to a request for approval to accept the fiscal year 2015-16 grant award from the California Department of Aging for the Senior Community Service Employment Program and to amend the fiscal year 2014-15 Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education Grant Standard Agreement SP 141525 to extend the contract expiration date to September 30th, 2015.
Wonderful. And I think we're up against a deadline here. It's the end of the fiscal year, so welcome and thanks for attending the committee. If you could give us your report.
Thank you very much. This report contains two items. The first one deals
State
with...
your name for the record. Sorry.
James Don, Department of Aging, Assistant General Manager.
Thank you.
As I was saying, the first item within this report is our Senior Job Training Program, the Senior Community Services Employment Program. This program, the department has operated for over 20 years. Basically, we assist hard to find job seniors, to give them job training, classroom training, and on-the-job training to improve their resume so they could actually find a job. In that program, we actually provide them a stipend to cover some of those costs associated with job seeking, such as transportation or maybe getting some new clothes for interviews. So we're asking for authority to accept the $1.5 million grant for the fiscal year 15-16. We received our funding notification. Unfortunately, when we released this transmittal, we had not received the actual standard agreement for this program, and the state has not been able to send that down yet.
Okay. You think by October 30 they will?
The program is supposed to start July 1, and we have 166 senior training slots. So it's a huge impact if they don't get that document to us as soon as possible. The second item in this report is a request to amend our current contract with the California Department of Aging for our senior nutrition program. It's simply an extension of time and not in money. The original grant was for $218,000 that this committee approved back in January. It's for a Live Strong, Eat Strong, Live Smart a nutrition education program, and it was meant to be a pilot, and it's actually going to be continued. The state simply wants to change the contract period from a state fiscal year to a federal fiscal year. So it's going to extend the current contract through September, and then the new funding will begin October 1st.
Okay.
Yes.
I like that slogan, live strong and eat smart.
Yeah.
Can we adopt that?
I think we should.
Sure, okay. Anything to add?
Terry Sauer, CAO's office. We've been working with we reviewed the department's transmittal. Our area of concern is the fact that the standard agreement has not yet been transmitted for your review. So we would recommend that that piece of it be held until the standard agreement is transmitted by the state. The SNAP-Ed piece is, we reviewed the SNAP-Ed piece and worked with the department, and that's fine for moving forward.
Oh, terrific. We can move forward with the recommendations 5 and 6?
Yes.
Right, in other words? Right.
Right.
Pending the standard agreement. All right. Do you need a letter or anything? Do you need a push from us or from my office? Or?
I'll talk to your staff
Okay.
to see if that would help. We've been in constant contact with them. They know the urgency of this.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll just provide another reminder of the urgency of it.
We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions?
Yeah, just
yes,
one,
Mr. Price.
This is two great programs. For the SC SEP program, the
Yes.
employment program, how are seniors recruited or informed about the
Is-
availability of these funds?
It's through our usual outreach, both by the department as well as our contractors, but we also have a partnership with the worksource centers. So whenever they run across older adults, because unlike our other programs, like our nutrition program, where a senior is 60 plus, under this program, if a older adult, 55 or older, enters into the system, they're eligible as well.
Thank you. That's about half the city council. We're almost eligible.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting close too.
I know you're not.
Easy.
But I will be later. Okay, thank you.
I'm over eligible.
Well, that's a lot of a good thing right there. All right, Mr. Buscaino? No? All right. So we do have a couple of comment cards on this. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we're going to be able to do something here, so we'll meet the deadline and notwithstanding the standard agreement piece. We have a comment card from H and a comment card from Tomcat. Looks like they're not here. They are not here. So, without objection, we'll approve recommendations 5 and 6, given there's that deadline, and continue all other recommendations in committee pending a CAO report. Are we good with that? Seeing as there are no objections, the item carries, and that is the final item on the agenda. This meeting is adjourned.
Good job, Mitch.
Thank you.